How did a band no one had heard of, no tours, no big names, no industry ties, manage to drop one of the most legendary rock albums ever? When Boston released their self-titled debut in 1976, it exploded onto the scene. With crystal clear production, sky-high guitar harmonies, and stadium-shaking hits like More Than a Feeling, it instantly rocked the charts and became one of the best-selling debuts of all time. But what fans didn't see was the wild secret behind it all. Led by the brilliant but mysterious Tom Scholz, the band pulled off one of the most jaw-dropping tricks in rock history. Record execs thought they were getting a polished band recording in a top-tier studio, but the truth? It was something no one could have guessed. The story really begins in 1969, when Scholz started crafting music while studying at the elite Massachusetts Institute of Technology. During those early years, he wrote a powerful instrumental called Foreplay, a track that would later help define Boston's sound. His time at MIT didn't just sharpen his engineering mind, it gave him the perfect setting to dive deeper into music. It was there that he linked up with a band called Freehold and met guitarist Barry Goudreau and drummer Jim Mazdia, two key players who would later help bring Boston to life. By 1973, Brad Delp had joined the group, completing a core team that would become legendary. Even though music was pulling him in hard, Scholz stayed on course with his studies and earned a master's degree in mechanical engineering from MIT. After graduation, he landed a solid job at Polaroid as a product design engineer. But instead of blowing his paychecks on random stuff, he funneled it straight into his dream. Scholz built a full-blown recording studio in his own basement. Yes, a basement. That home setup, plus extra studio sessions he personally funded, gave him the edge to create industry-level demo tapes, all without the music execs suspecting a thing. Scholz poured every ounce of energy into his demo recordings, often playing most of the instruments himself. Guitar, bass, keyboards, you name it. Delp handled the vocals, while Goudreau brought in his guitar skills, and Mazdia kept the beat on drums. Despite the obvious talent packed into these early tracks, record labels kept slamming the door in their faces. But Scholz didn't back down, not even close. He kept pushing forward, fine-tuning his sound and chasing something no one else had done before. In 1973, he pulled the group together under the name Mother's Milk, with Delp, Goudreau, and Mazdia as the main members. The band didn't last long, it broke up just a year later in 1974, but instead of walking away, Scholz doubled down. He kept collaborating with Delp and Mazdia, completely focused on crafting the perfect songs. During this stretch, he put together 6 jaw-dropping demo tracks: More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, Rock and Roll Band, Something About You, which started out as Life Isn't Easy, Hitch a Ride, first called San Francisco Day, and Don't Be Afraid. By the end of 1974, 4 of the 6 were done, and the last 2, More Than a Feeling and Something About You, wrapped up in 1975. These demos were something else. Scholz didn't just write or perform them, he built the entire sound from the ground up. He played nearly every instrument and even used his own custom-made guitar pedals to get that distinct, rich tone that would become Boston's trademark. His obsession with perfection finally paid off, big time. The finished demo blew away 2 major promoters, Paula Ahern and Charlie McKenzie, who immediately saw the band's potential. That moment changed everything and marked the official beginning of the band we now know as Boston. Ahern and McKenzie's involvement gave Boston the big boost they needed, but it also led to some painful changes. Just as things were heating up, drummer Jim Mazdia made the tough decision to step away from the band. According to Tom Scholz, both Ahern and McKenzie were firm. If they wanted a record deal, Mazdia had to go. It wasn't an easy call, and for Scholz, it hit hard emotionally. Years later, singer Brad Delp opened up about that time in an interview with journalist Chuck Miller. Delp said Mazdia had told them directly that he was losing interest in drumming, something that made the split a little easier to accept. Still, it didn't stop Scholz from feeling the weight of it all. Despite the shift, things were finally moving in the right direction. After Mazdia's exit, Scholz and Delp landed a deal with Epic Records, thanks in large part to Ahern and McKenzie's relentless support. But there was one final hoop to jump through. Epic wanted a live audition before signing anything official. To make that happen, Scholz and Delp had to build a killer live band that could bring his complex studio sound to life on stage. They brought in guitarist Barry Goudreau, bassist Franz Sheehan, and drummer Sib Hashian to form a powerhouse lineup that would shape Boston's early identity. But during rehearsal, tensions flared. Mazdia, still loosely involved at the time, insisted they needed a show-stopping drum solo to win over the record execs. Scholz wasn't so sure. They'd only been rehearsing for a month, and his focus was on tight arrangements, not flashy tricks. In the end, Scholz went with Hashen, someone he'd known and trusted for years. He believed Hashen's style was a better match for the sound Boston was heading toward. That decision paid off, the band crushed the audition, and Epic Records was sold. A record deal was officially on the table, and Boston was finally on the verge of making rock history. The deal was massive, 10 albums in just 6 years. It was a bold commitment, but it locked Boston into the music industry spotlight. With the contract signed, yet another hurdle appeared. Epic Records demanded that the demo tracks be re-recorded in a professional studio to meet their high-quality standards. But Tom Scholz wasn't budging. He was fiercely protective of his sound and preferred the comfort and control of his own basement studio, where he could perfect every note on his own terms. To outsmart the label without causing a clash, Scholz pulled off a brilliant move. He sent the rest of the band to Los Angeles to give the illusion of recording in a flashy studio, while he quietly stayed behind, crafting nearly the entire debut album in the very basement where it all began. Scholz invited Jim Mazdia back to lay down the drums, giving a nod to their roots. The rest, Scholz did it himself. He layered guitars, bass, and keys with such precision that the sound became instantly recognizable. Pure Boston magic. When the multi-track recordings were finished, they were shipped off to Los Angeles, where Brad Delp laid down his soaring vocals. Producer John Boylan then worked his mixing magic, turning Scholz's basement tapes into a studio-equivalent masterpiece. But there was still one thing missing: a name. It was Boylan, along with engineer Warren Dewey, who suggested the name Boston as a tribute to the band's hometown. The group loved it, and just like that, a rock legend was born. On August 25th, 1976, Boston's debut album exploded onto the scene. It became one of the most iconic and best-selling debut albums of all time, moving over 17 million copies in the US alone. It was a game changer. The album's crystal clear production, soaring harmonies, and layered guitars set a new gold standard for rock in the late 70s. The album's jaw-dropping production, thanks almost entirely to Tom Scholz, wasn't just luck. It was the result of years of obsessive tinkering in his home studio. Scholz, a genius MIT-trained engineer, spent endless hours crafting Boston's unique sound, even developing groundbreaking recording techniques that future rock stars would try to imitate. But as the band shot to stardom, something strange happened. There was a push to hide Scholz's dominance. According to a 1976 Rolling Stone article by Cameron Crowe, the label worked hard to present Boston as a united band, not just a one-man creative powerhouse led by Scholz. While the album soared up the charts, the band hit the road with a vengeance. In late summer and fall of 1976, Boston began tearing up the stage as the opening act for rock titans like Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult, and Foghat. The crowds were massive, the energy was wild, and Boston soaked up every minute of it. These gigs gave them critical stage time and a shot of real rock star exposure. But it didn't stop there. By winter of 76 into spring 77, they'd flipped the script. Boston was now the headliner, packing arenas and stealing the spotlight across the country. Their explosive rise didn't go unnoticed. Boston even scored a Grammy nomination for Best New Artist. For a band that had barely just debuted, it was unheard of, and they didn't disappoint. Their live shows proved they weren't just a studio creation. They could replicate every layered harmony and electrifying riff on stage, stunning fans and silencing critics. But behind the roaring applause, trouble was brewing. Deep in the background, Tom Scholz was being dragged into a tense power struggle between the band's manager, Paul Ahern, and his partner, Charles McKenzie. Scholz, who only wanted to focus on creating music, now found himself trapped in a whirlwind of legal and business drama he never signed up for. The spotlight was blinding, but behind the scenes, things were starting to crack. While the world saw Boston as a rising rock juggernaut, the truth behind the music told a very different story. Tom Scholz, the band's quiet mastermind, was still doing what he'd always done, working alone, meticulously, obsessively, in isolation. He wrote the songs, arranged every note, and played most of the instruments himself. But perfection comes at a price. His solo approach, while delivering that signature Boston sound, dragged the production process to a crawl. Still, against all odds and industry pressure, Scholz completed Boston's second album, Don't Look Back, released in August 1978. But by then, 2 years had passed since their debut, and in the fast-paced world of rock and roll, that was an eternity. Record labels expected artists to strike while the iron was hot. Fans were hungry, and Epic Records was getting impatient. Yet, despite the wait, Scholz wasn't satisfied. He believed Don't Look Back had been rushed, especially the second half, which he felt lacked the polish and precision he strived for. It wasn't ready. But the label pushed it out anyway. Ironically, even Scholz's unfinished work blew most bands out of the water. While it didn't match the stratospheric success of the debut, Don't Look Back still sold over 7 million copies, a monster hit by any standard. To support the album, Boston hit the road again, this time bigger, bolder, and louder. They toured with legends like Black Sabbath, Van Halen, Sammy Hagar, and the Doobie Brothers, proving night after night that they were more than just a studio band. Their concerts were electric, flawlessly tight, with harmonies and guitar lines that felt ripped straight from the record. But behind the roaring crowds and sold-out arenas, the cracks were widening. Scholz's relationship with manager Paul Ahern completely collapsed, plunging the band into even more legal and management chaos. Tired of compromises and pressure, Scholz made a bold decision. From now on, Boston would operate on his terms. No more rushing, no more interference. The next chapter of Boston would be a solo mission, driven by one man's relentless pursuit of musical perfection. As Boston soared to rock stardom, Tom Scholz quietly retreated into his fortress of creativity, his basement studio, armed with new technology, new ideas, and the same relentless perfectionism. But this time, he wasn't going to be rushed. No deadlines, no pressure. The third album would come when it was ready, and it wouldn't be ready for a long time. In late 1979, Scholz began the painstaking process of writing new material. But just as the creative sparks were starting to fly, they were doused by a legal bombshell. Paul Ahern, the band's former co-manager, resurfaced, claiming rights to a portion of every song Scholz would write from that point forward. An old contract came back to haunt him, and suddenly, the music had to wait. Scholz wasn't just fighting for creative freedom now, he was fighting for ownership of his own songs. With the future of Boston temporarily locked in a courtroom battle, Scholz encouraged the rest of the band to pursue side projects. Guitarist Barry Goudreau wasted no time. He launched a solo album, simply titled Barry Goudreau. But even in going solo, Goudreau didn't stray far from the Boston family. He brought in lead vocalist Brad Delp and drummer Sib Hashian to collaborate, with engineer Paul Grupp, well-versed in Scholz's sonic wizardry, guiding the production. When the album dropped in 1980, fans did a double take. The sound was unmistakably Boston-esque. So much so that CBS Records leaned into the resemblance, marketing the record to capitalize on Boston's name and popularity. That strategy stirred the pot. Dreams, the album's lead single, became a modest hit, but controversy swirled over how the project was presented to the public. To many, it felt like an unofficial Boston album, but without its architect, the legal and creative chaos of this period marked a turning point. Scholz wasn't just building an album anymore, he was building a legacy, brick by meticulous brick on his own terms. Tom Scholz was furious. He'd had nothing to do with Barry Goudreau's solo album, and yet the marketing made it look like a Boston side project. To Scholz, this wasn't just misleading, it was a violation of everything he stood for: precision, integrity, creative control. He protested the promotional campaign, insisting that the ad copy distorted the truth. But the controversy fizzled out when Epic Records, under the CBS umbrella, quietly pulled the plug, citing underwhelming public interest. But the damage had already been done. By 1981, the atmosphere within Boston had grown toxic. The tensions reached a boiling point when Scholz met with Barry Goudreau and made the decision to part ways. Goudreau was officially out. The dismissal rocked the band, and Brad Delp made it known he wasn't happy. In that same meeting, Delp told Scholz he was leaving too. The friction had worn him down. Still, Delp wasn't about to abandon the fans. He agreed to stay on until the album and tour were finished, a final act of loyalty to the people who'd made Boston a household name. Following his departure, Goudreau formed Orion the Hunter, enlisting Fran Cosmo on vocals. The band carried the melodic DNA of Boston, offering fans a familiar sound from a new name. Delp, meanwhile, took time to rediscover his musical voice, and years later he reunited with Goudreau to form Return to Zero, RTZ. Their collaboration in 1988 proved that while Boston's internal battles had splintered the band, the creative bonds between certain members endured. While back in Boston's camp, Tom Scholz and Brad Delp pushed forward on the band's long-delayed third album, but progress was slow. Then, in a staggering escalation, CBS Records slapped Scholz with a $60 million lawsuit, accusing him of breaching his contract by failing to deliver the album on time. The legal war would drag on for nearly a decade, casting a long shadow over the band's future, yet even as lawyers circled, Scholz kept building, not just music, but machines. He founded Scholz Research and Development, a company focused on engineering groundbreaking musical technology. While Boston's fans waited year after year for new music, Tom Scholz was quietly revolutionizing rock from behind the scenes. In 1982, his company Scholz Research and Development, SR&D, unveiled its crown jewel, the Rockman. Sleek, compact, and sonically powerful, the Rockman allowed guitarists to achieve Scholz's signature overdriven sound anywhere, anytime. It wasn't just an amplifier, it was a game changer. Musicians across the globe embraced it, and suddenly, the sonic DNA of Boston was everywhere, in radio hits, arena concerts, and bedroom jam sessions. But while SR&D was soaring, the third Boston album was crawling. Scholz, relentless in his perfectionism, was taking no shortcuts. The process dragged on for 6 painstaking years. Every note, every mix, every guitar tone had to be flawless. Reuniting with vocalist Brad Delp and drummer Jim Mastiar, Scholz built the album piece by piece, often working alone for hours on end, determined to create a record that would live up to the legacy. Meanwhile, the legal war with CBS Records turned brutal. Frustrated by the delays, CBS resorted to hardball tactics, most notably withholding royalty payments that Scholz had rightfully earned. It was a direct hit to his finances, designed to break his resolve, but Scholz held the line. He wasn't just fighting for money, he was fighting for creative freedom, and he refused to lose. Eventually, the first major blow landed in Scholz's favor. The court sided with him, undercutting CBS's claims. With momentum on his side, Scholz made a bold move. He walked away, signing Boston to MCA Records, a fresh start under a new banner. But the fight wasn't over. The lawsuit dragged on for years. Still, Scholz never relented, juggling court dates with studio sessions and product launches. Then, finally, in April 1990, the verdict came down. Scholz had won. After nearly a decade, the legal shackles were broken, and CBS's grip was gone for good. The victory over CBS was a monumental moment for Tom Scholz, not only solidifying his artistic independence, but also proving his relentless resolve to protect his creative vision. However, the triumph was soon overshadowed by a tragedy that shook the very foundation of Boston. On March 9, 2007, Brad Delp, the heart and soul of Boston's sound, passed away suddenly at his home in Atkinson, New Hampshire. The news sent shockwaves through the music world. Despite the tragedy, there was no indication of foul play, and authorities classified his death as untimely. Brad Delp's passing left an irreplaceable void in the band and in the hearts of fans, as his soaring vocals had defined Boston's legendary sound. For Tom Scholz, the loss was deeply personal, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new, uncertain chapter for Boston. Brad Delp was not just the voice of Boston, he was a beloved figure in the rock music world. His soaring, unmistakable vocals helped craft Boston's signature sound, and his sudden passing in 2007 left a profound impact on fans, fellow musicians, and all who knew him. His death revealed the hidden struggles he faced, despite the adoration he received from fans and the monumental success he achieved. Delp's passing left an irreplaceable void in the music world, but his legacy continues to inspire and resonate with generations of listeners. In honor of his life and career, a tribute concert titled Come Together, a tribute to Brad Delp, was held on August 19, 2007 at the Bank of America Pavilion in Boston. The event brought together friends, family, and fans to celebrate the profound impact Delp had on the music industry. His timeless contributions to rock, particularly through Boston's iconic hits like More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, and Amanda, will never be forgotten. What are your thoughts on how Boston came together and the impact they had on rock music? Let us know in the comments below. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more great content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.